to The Married Therapist,
a relationship podcast
hosted by us, Luis and Amber Semidey.
This podcast is all about love, conflict, and the gray areas.
If you like what you hear, be sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening. Now let's get to the show.
Welcome back to our podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about gender roles, what we witnessed in the past, and how we do gender roles in this marriage. So I'll let you start. Growing up, what did that look like in your household?
Yeah, and I love that we're going back because just like with conflict resolution, the way that we see things growing up is largely how we learn how to be an adult, how to be a human. I think people look at the past like, oh, let's not worry about the past, only focus on the present. But no, the past really does have a huge impact in your present. And so I do love that we're going back because for me, gender roles, being in a Hispanic Puerto Rican family, it was very traditional. So my mom did all the cleaning and all the cooking in our house. Granted, when my brothers and I have two older brothers and we were growing up, I think I started doing chores probably when I was for sure in elementary school. I know I was mowing the lawn by the time I was like in second grade, but yeah.
Was that by yourself?
No, my brothers and I would split up the yard. So we would split it in three chunks. So one person would do the front yard, one person would do the backyard, one person might do the side or something, some kind of split like that.
But that's still pretty impressive as a second grader.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was a lot, but I enjoyed it and I still love mowing the lawn. I just did it this morning and I love it, but because it's very systematic and it's a whole ADHD thing that I love, the symmetry of everything. Anyway, so yeah, we did mowing the lawn and we took out the trash typically, and then we would usually wash the cars too. Those were kind of our duties. And then we'd clean the bathroom and then our rooms. Those were our responsibilities as boys. My mom pretty much cleaned everything else in the house and then always cooked our meals. And so that's how we did things. My dad, he worked and he would help clean the cars sometimes, or he would clean. We always had a bunch of cars. My dad loved getting cars from like the lemon lots on post and then just cleaning them and selling them. And we always had just a random rotation of cars. So he would clean our one or two of his cars, and we would clean one of them at least. Anyways, that was how we did things growing up. Now, if my dad did other things in the house, I don't know. I just don't remember seeing it. And so maybe while we were doing the lawn or whatever, he was doing stuff. But that's just the way that I saw things modeled growing up. And in our family, it wasn't really seen as, oh, this isn't fair. Why is my mom doing everything? Like that was never really a thing just because that's what was normal in our family and that's what was normal in their families growing up. So it wasn't really seen as anything wrong with that. And I do remember as I was growing up and getting a little bit older, I did start to notice the inequity that existed in that. And I was like, hey, I feel like they're both working full time. Why aren't they doing equal things in the house? But again, with the cultural piece of things, it makes sense now as an adult with more knowledge of cultural norms and things like that. But yeah, so that's just how things were growing up. I remember noticing that and just not really wanting that in my marriage when I grew up. I am not opposed to cooking. I mean, I do all the cooking now and we'll get into that later, but I love cooking, but that wasn't seen as something that boys do in our household. So we just didn't do it. And then also laundry, we didn't do laundry because that was a female job. And that's just how we were raised. I didn't do laundry for myself until my junior year of high school when my stepmom entered the picture. And the only reason I did that really was because I was running track and cross country at the time. And we had morning practices, afternoon practices, and then I had a PE class in the middle of the day. So I had three sets of gym clothes every day that I was going through. And then my school clothes. And my stepmom was like, absolutely not. You're going to do your own laundry. And yeah, so I just started doing it at that point. I didn't mind. And so that's just kind of how things were growing up. So yes, that's just what I saw. What about you? What was your experience growing up?
Yeah, growing up, I witnessed my mom doing all the cooking. There were 6 kids, 8 people in the household, so she was always making sure that we were fed, lots of
Gosh.
leftovers, which I still love to this day. As far as everything else, it was on us. As kids, we all were different ages. So laundry and dishes and vacuuming and things like that were taken care of. My dad was in the Marines, So we had that house clean every single day. We all had our different assignments. You do the bathroom, you do the living room, you do the kitchen. I didn't see my dad doing a ton. I do recall a few times seeing him mow the lawn, but then eventually we hired our neighbor who was a high schooler, and this is when my brothers were out of the house. As far as anything else, not quite sure, like financial management and things like that. But that's what I saw. I had no thoughts about, oh, like this is fair or this isn't fair. I just had the thought of it is what it is.
Yeah.
You don't really even know how things are one way or another until you get out of that and maybe start talking to your friends
Yeah.
about how things are done.
It's like, this is life. This is how we grew up. Like, this is what happened in our house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how things were for me growing up.
Okay, cool. That's crazy that you guys, I guess with 8 people, the house wouldn't need to be cleaned every day, but that's wild that you guys would have to clean everything every day. Because growing up for us, Sunday was always cleaning day. I mean, we would pick up after ourselves throughout the week. Sunday was the day to clean. And I remember being woken up early. My mom would always play mariachi music, which was interesting. It was like mariachi music or salsa or merengue or something like that. Something that was Spanish. But I remember the mariachi music, which again is interesting because my mom's Puerto Rican and we don't listen to mariachi music typically. But that was like cleaning music to me. It's just interesting that you guys had it every day and it was, wasn't really the norm for us. But anyway,
Yeah, we hated it.
yeah. Yeah, I can imagine.
Cleanliness was a top priority, and if it wasn't done, there were repercussions. So we just learned very early on this is what it is. Make sure you have it done. And again, at a certain point, my two older brothers were out of the house, and my little sister was too young. So it mainly was my twin sister and then my sister, who's 15 months older, the three of us doing all the cleaning.
Gotcha. Okay. Did that really continue until you graduated high school and left the house?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Okay.
And that's why I'm very clean.
Yeah,
To
which
this day,
is great.
they set that foundation.
Yeah.
I do value that. Now, I can imagine there are some people who are the opposite.
Hmm.
Like, I grew up in a household where we're cleaning all the time and I was sick of it. So now I'm free to be messy. No,
Yeah.
I I like when things are clean and things are orderly.
Yeah. So when did you start having your idea of what you wanted as far as gender roles in a marriage? When did that start developing?
I'm not really sure, but I can say I am a person of fairness and justice. And so I would never want to be a part of a situation where I was doing all the work or you were doing all the work.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily have to be 50-50, but something close to that.
Yeah.
Everybody has to do what's right for them, but for me, I hate cooking. And so I didn't want to be a part of a marriage where that was an expectation. The whole thing of when I come home, there needs to be a warm meal ready.
Yeah.
I have the exact opposite. You love cooking and I don't. Our relationship with cooking couldn't be more different.
Yeah.
And so I remember actually praying about that. It was just like, Lord, please let me get with someone who can cook, or let me be with someone who's not picky, is not like, oh, way to my heart is through my stomach because I can't throw down. Of course, you can learn anything, but I just didn't have the desire to do that.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I know in your previous marriage, you were doing all the cooking. And so how did that come about? Was that something you guys agreed on or was it just an expectation?
Yes, you are correct. When I was married to him, I did the cooking and I enjoyed it. I think it probably was because one, I was vegan. So before I met him, I was making all this vegan food. Now that I was with him, I'm going to continue making it, except that it's for two. And also, I just was going through so much. I can imagine part of me was like, I have to do that.
Yeah.
And he did cook sometimes, but mainly that was on me. And I don't remember hating it. I don't remember having issues
Okay.
with that. He also wasn't picky, so that was nice. But yeah, that ended. Eventually, I went back to not liking to cook. So I did it because I had to. But then I found two independent catering people. One person, I went to their house to pick up the meals. and the other person, they delivered the meals. And so at that time, I just remember being like, okay, when I get married again, I don't want to do the cooking. To me, cooking is a chore. It's equivalent to scrubbing the baseboards, and it's something that I just don't like to do.
Yeah. Okay. So you said after that marriage, you wanted to get into a relationship where you didn't have to do all the cooking. Beyond cooking, did you have any idea or any preference on what the gender roles would be? Or did you have any opinion about gender roles in a relationship in general after all of that?
I don't consciously remember thinking about it, but if I had to guess, I would say, yeah, I don't really want to do the cooking, but I'll do the cleaning all day long.
Mm,
And that's what I've said with you. This question is hard to answer. I'm pretty much an experiential person when it comes to a relationship. So it's like, okay, put me in a relationship and
yeah,
let's see. And also, I never was the type to live with everybody that I dated.
right.
So it's just like, okay, not only put me in a relationship, but let's live together and see
Hmm.
and have a conversation. Almost like when you're getting with a roommate. It's like, okay, what are the house rules?
Yeah.
What are we gonna do? Are we gonna split groceries? So that's how things are for me.
Okay. I remember one of my friends, they had mentioned in their premarital counseling that was a task that their premarital counselor had them do was there was a long list of random things and they had to put if this was the man's job, if this was the woman's job, or if this was a shared job. So they did it independently and then they came together to see how their answers compared to each other because I think a lot of times people don't even realize that some of the tasks in the household or in life are gendered without even recognizing it. It's like that's normal. Of course they would do that. Instead of understanding that this is a preference. I just saw a post with Donald Miller. He's an author. He's one of my favorite authors. But he put a post about marriage and he said, "Don't moralize preferences." Because we tend to do that sometimes. And he was talking about the dishwasher, which is its own thing. When people just argue about how they load the dishwasher and they assume that their way is right, when the reality is there's no right way to do it. You just do it and it gets done. I think that that can be true in a lot of things with roles in the household. And I think for me, I never really had a huge preference or a huge opinion about what roles each gender does within the household. I just know for me, the things that I enjoyed doing, I didn't mind doing in the marriage, like cooking. I know cooking is traditionally the female's job, and I knew that I enjoyed cooking, so I was just like, I don't really care whose job it is. I know that I enjoy doing it, so I wouldn't mind doing it. So I think in general, I was more open to the idea of just seeing what works and not really placing a role on a person just because they are female or they are male. Again, just seeing what works. I know getting into this marriage, I know we had really the same thought. We didn't really have roles. We just looked at what we preferred to do and we just did those things. Luckily, the things that we preferred are fairly opposite. And so that it worked out for us. I know there are relationships out there where both people don't like cooking or both people don't like laundry, both people don't like doing the dishes and you just have to kind of figure it out or just take turns or do it together, something like that. But for us, yeah, we just do what we enjoy doing or what we are good at doing. I mean, obviously taking the trash out, nobody loves taking out the trash, but I do it just because I don't mind doing it and going outside and all of that. I know when we lived in an apartment, you would do it sometimes. And so it's not necessarily a gendered job, but it's something that I just take on just because I don't mind doing it. And again, I love doing the yard. So that's my job, but not because I'm a man, but because I love doing it.
So we can share our official gender role dynamic.
Yes.
So as you mentioned, you take out the trash, you do all the yard work,
Hmm.
you do the financial management,
Yes.
and then you do the grocery shopping and the cooking.
Yes.
And then I do all the cleaning, bathroom, living room, every part of the house, as well as the laundry and then the dishes.
Yeah, and that's what works for us, and I love that we do that. I know there have been times, even fairly recently, within the last few months, where it still feels foreign to me to not clean things in the house, but it's funny because it's amazing because the fact that I'm not doing anything cleaning wise, I expect things to be dirty because I'm not cleaning it, so it should be dirty, but it's not because you're cleaning it. It's like it's a miracle. It's incredible. But anyway, yeah, it works for us, and I enjoy the dynamic that we have.
Yeah, I do too. And I work from home. and
Yeah.
I'll clean in between sessions. So you're not seeing me do the work. You see me do the dishes. That's
Yeah.
about it. So I can imagine how it's kind of weird. I'm not cleaning, yet it's clean, but I don't see. I'm a little cleaning fairy.
I just think about like all the little mice from Cinderella, just like constantly cleaning all the things. Like we don't have mice, thankfully, but
Your wife, the mouse.
yeah. And then also, I think something else is traditionally a female's job is decorating the home. That's something that I enjoy doing. I enjoy putting things together and really organizing the layout of things and putting things on the walls and curtains and the things like that. I know I've kind of taken that on too, and I enjoy doing it. I like designing things in general. It's that it hits on that creative part of my brain, and I know that's not you don't necessarily have a preference on those things. So it's
No, I don't enjoy it. When it comes to the furniture, you've purchased everything before purchasing it. You did the research. And
hmm
then once it's here, you made sure that everything was set up properly. And I know you asked, what do you think? Do you want to be a part of this? We could do it together. And I was like, mm-mm, that's your thing. Like, I'm totally good.
yeah,
I love your taste. So I had zero issue
yeah.
trusting. I knew whatever the vision was would be great. Speaking of that, when it came to our wedding,
Oh yeah.
it was the same way. You picked
Mhm.
out our wedding colors, and when it came to the layout of the reception regarding the tables
Yeah.
and then the entry table
And the
and then the
centerpieces.
yeah, every single thing,
Yeah.
I had zero issues with that either.
Yeah, I enjoyed doing it. That was hitting on that creative part of myself that I enjoy doing. And I love that you trust me with that because I think that allowed me to be free in my creativity. And if you did have a preference on things, you would tell me, but not in a harsh way. And so I can trust you and trust myself that I can be free with what I want to do, knowing that it's not going to be met with pushback and negativity necessarily. And there were some things that you had preferences on, but not a lot. And so I was able to just kind of do a lot, which was nice. All the signage for our wedding, I did on Canva and printed out at Walgreens and things like that, which was great.
Yeah, it was really beautiful and we got compliments on it. And when it came to the vendors and the contracts and deadlines, that was what I did. So
Yes.
more logistics,
Yeah.
and you were great with that. Like you weren't worried that
Mhm.
anything would fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
I'm just a very organized person. My undergrad was in organizational interpersonal communication. I love all things communication, all things organizing, so it worked out perfectly.
So beyond just quote unquote allowing each other to do these different tasks, I think what it boils down to is we trust each other. We trust that we're going to get the things done that we need to get done. And we trust that it's going to be appreciated and going to be met with love and grace. And there's not going to be any weirdo dynamics, which I know for me at least was definitely the case in my previous marriage. And so, yeah, I love our dynamic. Like we have a good thing going. And I know that's not always the case with people. And I know that was a question that we've had before. Like, what if we both don't like doing these things? I know we talked about this a little bit before, but there are so many different ways to split chores. If both of you guys hate doing dishes, maybe it can be a thing where you guys alternate on days. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, you do the dishes. Tuesdays, Thursdays, on the weekends, I'll do the dishes or something like that. And same thing with laundry. Maybe one person washes and dries, the other person folds and puts away. I don't know, but
Yeah, or week 1 and 3, one person does it. Week 2 and 4, the other person does it. When it comes to dishes, if you guys detest it, you can just do paper plates,
you could.
plastic cutlery. I know when I was living with my sister, we did that. It's a
Yeah,
lot to do dishes, so
it
you just
is.
gotta figure out what works. Maybe even month by month. For this month, I'm gonna do the dishes, and next
Yeah.
month, you're gonna do the dishes. But it has to get done. I
Yeah.
mean, unless you're eating out
Mhm.
every day, which,
Which
yeah, it's not sustainable for most of us. But I want to go back a little bit because I know you were saying with cleaning, it was this weird thing to not do and then to magically see it done.
mhm.
When it comes to cooking, I feel like I'm at a restaurant every day. You literally serve me, and it's amazing. And I know you said you feel like it's not really balanced. I feel the same way. I feel so lucky that all I have to do is clean. all I have to do is dishes, all I have to do is laundry, and I get meals served to me every single day, really good meals. So I just love that fact that we both feel the same way about our chore designation.
Yeah.
And I also love that we've done check-ins.
Yeah.
Hey, are you still cool with the way that things are? If not, we could talk about it. But
Yeah, because that's the thing I think a lot of people don't talk about is people change in marriages, people change in life in general. Preferences that you had when you were 25 are not the same that you had when you're 45. People think like, "Oh, you're switching up on me." It's like, "No, you're human, you're growing and you're evolving, and that's okay, that's expected." I love that we do those check-ins for that reason because, I mean, I don't foresee myself getting to a point where I hate cooking, but maybe that'll come at some point, and so those check-ins would be helpful. Now I do think I am growing in my ability to express my needs, and so I'm hopeful that if I get to that point, I won't have to depend on the check-in to let you know that. I think I can let you know, like, "Hey, I'm not really feeling cooking anymore. Can we figure something out?" But I think right now the check-ins are really helpful.
yeah, it works.
Yeah. I want to speak to people that do fall into those traditional roles. I think sometimes people fall into two camps. It's like pro traditional roles, that's the only way you're supposed to go, versus no, traditional roles are garbage. And I think both are very extreme. I don't think one is right, one is wrong. I think, again, it boils down to preferences. If you think traditional roles are the way they're supposed to go, and that's what works in your marriage and your relationship, awesome. That's fine. We're not saying that's wrong, right? And vice versa. If things are more like us, where it's just based on preferences, not on any gender rules, cool, that works too. I think people have to do what works for their relationship and not do it just because society says you're supposed to do one thing or another.
Yeah, and to your point, people need to be talking about this pretty early on, I would say, in the dating relationship.
Yeah.
It would suck to be dating someone, fall in love, and then it come up that
Mm.
I want you cooking every single day,
Yeah.
or I absolutely hate cleaning. And when I get married, I want my partner to do all the cleaning. You're
Yeah.
already roped in at that point. And that's one of the issues that causes relationships to fail
Yeah.
is the fact that people just aren't in alignment when it comes to that. And of course, resentment builds up and frustration, anger, and that can turn into a whole host of other things. So I would say if you're dating someone,
Yeah.
have that conversation sooner rather than later to see if it works for you.
Yeah, because I think going back to something I had mentioned earlier, people have these assumptions that they think everyone believes that aren't really true. Because some people grow up, again, like I did growing up in a very traditional Hispanic family, they could grow up thinking, oh, yeah, the woman's supposed to cook. That's normal, and then get into a relationship and expect the woman to have that same mindset, and then they don't, and then they get married and they're shocked, like, "Why aren't you cooking? Something's wrong with you." And it's like, "We never agreed on that. What?" So I think knowing what your preferences are, knowing what your expectations are definitely important, especially at the beginning of a relationship, like you said, because then you get roped in and you don't want to get into a relationship where not just that someone has these rigid gender roles in mind, if that's not what you believe, but that they're not willing to budge on them. Because it's okay to grow up that way. It's okay to have that mindset. But if you're not willing to budge on it, that's a whole different situation. And if that's a hill that you're willing to die on, what the person you're with isn't, then that would be a good indication. Okay, this probably wouldn't work out in that
Yeah.
way.
And a step further, let's say you're the type who wants to have kids and go back to work.
Yeah.
That is very important to you, and you are with someone who said, "No, when we have kids, I want you to stay at home." If we're not having this conversation early on,
Yeah.
that can cause a lot of resentment. That's a
Mm.
really big deal. If
Yeah.
you were home but didn't want to be home, but the person that you were with won that specific battle,
Right.
that just sucks. So, talk to the person that you're dating.
Yes. That, and then not only within your dynamic as a couple, but then when you have kids, how are you going to teach roles to kids, and what roles are the kids going to have in doing chores? Some people believe kids shouldn't do chores. They should just be kids. Some think they should have an allowance for doing their chores. Some think they should do chores, that's what's expected of them. And there's all these assumptions that we have that aren't normal for people. And then we have kids and it becomes this whole issue. It's like, why aren't they doing chores? It's like they shouldn't be doing chores, but you never talk about that to start out with. So lots of questions here because I remember growing up with some friends and they were also Puerto Rican. There were two sisters and then a brother, and they were very traditional in how they did things. And the girls hated it. The girls had to do all the cooking with the mom and the cleaning. And the boy, he was the youngest, all he did was take the trash out and that was his job, and they hated it. The boy could do whatever he wanted and play outside, and the girls were inside all the time. So, and that's what worked for their family according to the parents. That's kind of how they ran things. But I'm sure, I mean, I don't know what they're doing now, but I'm sure in their marriages, in their relationships that they're in now, they probably look very different than how they grew
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. And I want to say too, for the people who are currently married and you have a very specific dynamic there, you can have a conversation
Mhm.
if it's safe and if you feel like you can communicate that clearly and it would be received well. Sit down. If you don't like the designation of chores, hey, I don't like cooking. I don't like cleaning. I feel like I'm doing too much. I would appreciate if you did that. Now, I know sometimes when we have these conversations, actually, a lot of times it doesn't go well because we're set in our ways.
Yeah,
But if you have a partner who, again, is open and who's flexible, I think it's worth having because you don't have to be set. It doesn't have to be this fixed thing for the rest of your life.
yeah,
You will always do this.
yeah. I think honestly, just the idea of gender roles is, in my mind, kind of silly. I don't think your gender should play a part in what thing you do because it's just a task. And it reminds me of even with toys. I saw this meme about toys for kids, how they're so gendered and how that's weird. And it said, if you do not need a male or female body part to use the toy, it is not gendered. If you do, it's not made for kids. And so it's like, I mean, if it's a thing that needs to be done, anybody can do it.
Yeah, it's just a matter of what you subscribe to.
Yeah.
Like, I remember going to school with some people who are very traditional. They
Mhm.
wanted to do all the cooking and all the cleaning when they had kids. They wanted to stay home
Mhm.
and take care of them. Hey, that works.
Yeah.
I am not saying that that's bad. I know in our current society, a lot of people side eye these traditional wives, but
Mhm.
I'm just like, we're all different.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what you like to do. Nothing is better than the other.
Yeah.
The thing is, have a conversation. If you're a trad wife, cool. Get with the trad husband. Alignment is everything.
Yeah, and I love that because so many people take their personal preference, their personal experience, and try to generalize it to everyone, but not everyone is the same. And they think that their way is right, and it's not, it is just it's your way of doing things. And just because it is the dominant way of doing things doesn't mean it's the right way of doing things. And I think about even just culturally speaking with trad wives, like traditional wives, or even Muslim women who wear the hijabs. I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're so oppressed. And some, it's not oppression to them. They love that. And so I think we get our own context mixed up with what's right versus what works for people.
Yeah, I agree. I have seen a couple of videos on TikTok with
Hmm.
Muslim women who are so happy and they love their lives. It's a form of devotion
Hmm.
and they're good. So it really just depends on the person.
Yeah.
That just goes back to what we learned in grad school is let people be the experts of their own story. Let
Yeah.
let them tell you. Now
Yeah.
maybe there is someone like that who does feel oppressed. Okay, but let's stop grouping everybody in the same boat. So, love this conversation.
Yes. And there's so much more on just gender in general that I know we can speak on, but
Yeah. So we can now transition to our segment called Let's Unpack This, where
yes.
we tell you guys about a recent show that we've watched and our thoughts about it.
Hmm.
So we recently finished a show on Netflix called Forever.
So good.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, highly recommend. So this show was created by Mara Brockakil, and she was behind Moesha, Girlfriends, The Game, so many other incredible shows. And it was also directed by Regina King. She directed one episode and then she's the executive producer. So this show is set in LA, which is where Regina King is from. And what I love, one of the things I love, is that it really highlights LA as an additional character. You see so many wonderful things. A lot of people shit on LA because it's land of the influencers.
Yeah.
But we always forget about the people who are actually from there.
Yeah.
LA is so much more than what meets the eye.
And the glitz and the glamour and all the hype that it gets a lot of times. I loved the normalcy that it had in the show.
Yeah. I was born in LA and I have a lot of family in the LA area. So a lot of us, we see that side of it. And so anytime someone's like, I hate LA, it's just like 9 times out of 10, it's someone who isn't from there. And it's just because of the influencer Hollywood world that can be so fake and shallow. Anyways, beyond it being in LA, what's cool about the show is that it's a teen romance, follows 2 high schoolers love story. This show is based on Judy Blume's 1975 book by the same title. And it's just cool because they're Black. And oftentimes we don't see a lot of Black love, Black joy.
Yeah.
In this show, they don't show struggle in the classic way. Now, there are struggles and there were traumatic things that were happening, but it was just portrayed in such a beautiful, cool way. I remember there was like one scene where I was like, oh, I feel like it's gonna go down a certain path, and then it didn't. And I was so happy because I'm so sick of those stories. And I know they happen. So I'm not in denial about that. But when that's all you see, it can just be really heavy as a Black person. I'm like, I'm trying to smile. So I just loved that piece. And I loved that they talked about mental health. That was a big piece of it, specifically depression and then ADHD. I loved that. Well, you can talk because I was geeking out the whole time. But what did you love?
Yeah, I loved so much about it. Like I said, I loved that they showed LA in a very normal way. Just like any other city that someone would live in, they're going to these random little spots, not like the hottest place that Instagram is highlighting today. Just normal spots in their neighborhood, just going to normal things. So that I loved that part of just the culture and landscape of LA. But like you said, I loved the idea that a Black story was told with a narrative that wasn't focused on the Black struggle. Like their Blackness wasn't the point.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times with stories with Black characters, their Blackness becomes the point for a lot of things. And it wasn't. Like it was just an incredible love story, an incredible story of family and having a tribe around you. And I think that definitely hit on some cultural aspects too that isn't talked about enough. Like you said, mental health. Oftentimes, Black and brown people shy away from mental health for different reasons. And they highlighted that. They said, Black people don't go to therapy. And then I don't want to give any spoilers, but there was someone in there that had mentioned, oh, therapy has been incredible for me, sharing with another Black person and really got them to see like it can be beneficial. It's not as scary as we make it out to be. And just seeing that and seeing that it's a beautiful love story. It's a beautiful picture of family. And I love that one of the families is really well off and really wealthy. And it's not seen as, oh my gosh, they're so abnormal because they're Black and wealthy. What?
Yeah.
It was like, okay, they're Black and they're doing really well for themselves.
And they weren't an entertainer.
And
or an athlete.
Yes.
What a concept.
Yeah.
The wealth came from the dad being a chef.
Mm-hmm.
He, at the end of the series, got an incredible opportunity beyond what he was already experiencing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so often they are a basketball player, a football player, or, a producer or a singer.
Yeah.
So I loved that, specifically in LA. That was really cool.
Yeah, because LA is the center for entertainers and athletes. But yeah, I loved all of that. Now, getting to the relational piece of things, there were so many frustrating things with the two main characters. Granted, we had to keep reminding ourselves they're in high school, and high school brains are not fully developed, and they are all kinds of wackadoodle at that age. And I talk to the kids that I work with all the time about what their brain is doing right now, because they can get so wrapped up in their decision making and oh, they just made this really dumb decision. And it's normal at that age because the way your brain is forming, your amygdala is firing off very quickly and very strongly. It's overactive. And for those who don't know, the amygdala is responsible for emotions and impulses and urges, all of that stuff. So that's overactive when you're a teenager. And your frontal lobe doesn't fully develop until you're in your mid 20s. And it tends to be underactive when you are a teenager. And so when you have your amygdala giving you all your impulses and emotions firing off and your decision making part dormant,
Logic,
you're going to make,
rational.
yeah, you're going to make some dumb decisions. And that's what happens. And yeah, so going into this love story, there were so many things that was just frustrating because the basis of a lot of it was just not communicating. They were making all these assumptions that the other person was thinking or feeling without ever talking about it. So they're creating this narrative of what they think is happening and making decisions based on what they think is happening when that's not what was happening at all. And if they would have just asked a simple question like, "Hey, I'm noticing this. What do you have to say about that?" They were, just going off on each other, which is, anyway. So
Yeah, and they eventually came around, and I was so proud of them. But to your point about them just making all kind of ridiculous decisions, I love that their parents had a huge part to play,
yeah.
and they helped them be able to make sense of what was going on.
Mm-mm.
Because yeah, when it's just a bunch of teens, because they also had friends that they were talking to.
Yeah.
When it's a bunch of teens, we're all putting our brains together.
Our little mush brains together.
Yeah. Sometimes it could be helpful, but a lot of
Yeah.
times not so much. So when they brought the adults in their lives into their situation is when things really started to change. So I love that.
Yeah.
And they spoke about community,
Mm-hmm.
how we've got to do it. Other communities are doing it. We've got to be a community that also does it. And it was hard. It was a really
Yeah.
difficult thing for them to get the adults
Yeah.
involved because like most teens, that's not appealing.
Yeah.
Like, ew, I'm not gonna talk to my parents. But there's a lot of protection and a lot
Yeah.
of strength.
And I love that they showed the good and the not so good about the parents too, because parents, like we know, are not infallible. Parents make mistakes. And most parents want what's best for their kids at the end of the day. And that's what we saw. We saw these parents who were just trying the best that they could to do what they thought was best for their kids and falling short many times. And we saw the humanity in it. And I loved that. I think it really highlighted mainly both moms and their things they had going on and their downfalls and their successes. And I think both of them had their fair share of both in them. I do want to speak on the main character. I'm forgetting his name, but the boy in this, his mom, one of her main things, and this is mainly you saw this towards the end. I'm not gonna give any spoilers, but you see this a lot where parents put their own desires in front of their kids' desires because they think they know what's best for them. And the reality is you probably do know what's best for them, but they have to make their own decisions too. And if they make a decision that isn't what's best for them, as long as it's not going to harm them, I think we have to let them make those decisions and face those natural consequences of their decisions. That's how they learn, right? I tell kids all the time and parents, there's a difference between what is hurtful and what is harmful. As long as it's not harmful, I think we can let kids make mistakes and get hurt.
Yeah, because they'll be okay. They'll recover.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And so I think, again, it's this whole thing of this is out of love, but the kid doesn't see that. All the kid sees is you are not letting them choose what they want to do, and that's all they see. They don't see the bigger picture, and it's like, oh, one day you're gonna thank me. Maybe that's true. Maybe they will thank you one day, but right now they don't like you, and
Yeah.
that's not going to be good in the long run.
I'm so excited that it just got renewed for season 2.
So excited. I don't know when it's going to be released, but I'm excited to watch it already.
Yes. So highly recommend, 10 out of 10.
Yes. And so if there's anything that you guys have regarding gender roles or this show forever, let us know. If you want to let us know what works in your relationship, what doesn't work in your relationship, or what you guys have figured out and what you believe as far as gender roles go. If you think there should be gender roles, or if you think gender roles should be out the door, let us know. We'd love to hear it.
So be sure to like, follow, comment, subscribe. We would love to hear from you. Appreciate it, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks. Bye.